It's time for Reason.
And I think that we should take that same idea and apply it here in our local statewide elected seats. If you don't know how to lead and do it under a Republican agenda and push Republicans who may be green, who may be freshmen, who may be trying to learn the system, if you can't pressure them a little bit as the leader of one chamber or another in order to do something productive in a sense that actually abides by Republicanism, then you need to be out of leadership positions.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Good morning to you. Welcome into the Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. It is a Monday. Let's go ahead and get it started off here, shall we? We got to get pumped up, and it's an exciting day, setting the tone for the week, getting ready 1 week away from Halloween. This is what we do here. It's time to Carpe Diem all over this place. Let's start off a Monday morning.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started.
There it is, 721-8255-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, it's a pleasure to have you along here as we kick off a brand new day, a brand new week, making it a beautiful one, shall we? We got to utilize the day. As conservatives, we're the ones that actually like to do something productive in the day. We see the light at the end of the tunnel. We see something that we're going towards as, doing productive things in society as opposed to just complaining and whining and protesting about it. Why? Because we're conservative and we don't like to play the victim. Welcome into it, 721-825-5721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, shoot me a message on Facebook, on the Voice of Reason page, on the KQAM page, on the Twitter at Hoosier Reason, along with the Facebook Live feed we have going on. Many people checking it out. I do appreciate, by the way, too, if you would like to like it. First off, like the Facebook Live feed and then share it on your page as well. We're growing that very much so. And for whatever reason, the shenanigans that happen on Friday always seem to be the big day when we actually get the most amount of viewership. I got my quote unquote makeover and got my haircut done on the air last week, and we had like 700 views for it. Now, what? I mean, that's great, and I appreciate it. To watch the Facebook Live for me to get my haircut, that's cool. I mean, that's fun. So, I don't know, maybe we need to do like the what's Andy going to be wearing today kind of thing, or what's Andy going to be doing today? I don't know, but check out the Facebook Live feed. It's always entertaining for whatever reason. Appreciate it, like it, share it, and we can grow and expand the way we need to here. We have some elections coming up, both this year with the special election coming up in really 2 weeks from now. We have the gubernatorial race coming up next year. We have some legislative issues coming up next year and the midterm elections. It's going to be extremely difficult for us to advance conservatism. I am going to be shifting gears, and really from now on, right after the special election, we're going to be talking about those upcoming elections next year. It is so important for us to understand the issues. It is so important for us to be able to go forward understanding the attacks that they're putting on Republicans every single day. And we're going to play a clip here in just a minute and get your take on this from Not One Penny, a left-wing organization trying to stop the tax reform at the D.C. level. And they're using Kansas as the example of why we need to do that. And we'll play that here in just a bit. First off, welcome in. Appreciate you hanging out with us here on a Monday. Coming up in hour number 3, Gerard Lamiero. It's been a while since we had the doctor on the show, and we're going to get him back on, author of the book Great News for America. He's going to jump on, talk to us about the latest he's been seeing, getting ready for the midterm election, getting ready for the Trump agenda in the administration and how things have been panning out there. And we'll get his take on those things. We love talking with him. Usually we do it about once a month or so. It's been a little bit, so looking forward to get him back on the show. Tomorrow, last week, by the way, I was at the Sedgwick County Republican Party meeting, and the issue came up with the special election, and people a little concerned and confused as to the candidates running for both the city council and for the Wichita School Board on what their platform is, what their policies are, because they're quote-unquote not affiliated with any partisanship when it comes to local elections. So you can't tell Republican, Democrat, so you really need to listen to what they have to say. And being a local, smaller election like this, it's very difficult for them to understand, or for us to understand, what their platform actually is. So we're going to be getting as many of these individuals on as we can. I have invited every school board candidate onto the show. I have confirmed a few of them. Not all of them have responded back to me, but I have at least reached out to every single one of them. But when it comes to the city council, Mike Kennard, candidate for District 1, is going to be joining us tomorrow at 8:30. So stay tuned in for that. And then I'm trying to see here. The other candidate, Brandon Johnson, is going to be joining us on Wednesday next week on the 1st at 8:30 for him. So we'll talk with Mike Kennard tomorrow. And then it looks like Julie Hedrick, Wichita School Board District 2 is going to be joining us on Thursday at 7:30. So we got some candidates already booking and a few of them coming up this week. So looking forward to chatting with them. Stay tuned in for that. This is where you're going to get that information. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have a rundown. It's going to be a quick hit of a questionnaire of close to 10, 15 questions of issues, and we're going to run through them as quickly as we can to get their take on a lot of the platform issues. So stay tuned in. We'll talk to as many of them as we possibly can throughout this week and next week. The election 2 weeks from now, we got a little bit of time, and we'll be able to get those on and talk about some of those candidates. So I am really concerned and looking forward to the issue with the Wichita School Board. As you know, we have the finance issue with the budget going on with education here in the state. And at the same time, we just saw the same statement from the Wichita School Board that's hiring now a deputy superintendent for us to actually increase our administrative costs at the school board because, well, I mean, that's the priority, right? Then we see the story, and I don't know if you've seen this or not, but this came out last week on this came out October 20th, so it came out end of last week. A Wichita School Board member speaking out against what she says a culture of bullying, intimidation, and closed-door deals among some of the board members. Joy Eakins is an opinion piece that she sent to the Eagle, said some of the school board members, quote, attacked others that aren't in lockstep with their views in order to control the message before it goes to the public. Which, if that's the case, it's very concerning. Now, there are some that are running for re-election to the school board, so that might have to be a question that we ask them on what happens behind closed doors here, because they want, what their idea is to have the vision of the school board of everybody in unison, moving forward, holding hands, singing Kumbaya, moving forward together when they're in the view of the public. Behind the doors there is when the bullying, intimidation, blackmailing happens in order for everybody to get on board with this, which means we have a dictatorial utopia under our school board. If that's the case, I'm not confirming and saying that that's what the case is. Maybe she's over-exaggerating. I don't know. I'm not there. I can't say. But if that is the case that's happening, then it's very concerning because we have really a tyrannical school board that makes the decision and moves forward and says, this is our stance. We're going to do this in front of the public. And behind the scenes, they silence any kind of opposition based on the majority, instead of actually having an open dialogue and an open discussion in front of the public to understand all the sides of the issues and allowing the parents and allowing the public to actually make decisions here. Quote, we need to change some things on the board, and the only way we're going to change them is if somebody's willing to stand up and fight and say what's happening out loud. The way things are working and operating right now is bad for the staff, it's bad for the students, and it's bad for the board. If somebody doesn't speak up and tell the truth, then nothing's going to change. So that's the accusation. Now, board member Lynn Rogers said that this is completely bogus. Quote, I've disagreed with nearly every board member I've ever served with at one time or another. If you don't succeed, you don't revert to name-calling and accusations. I don't think that that's fair. It's not right, and it's a huge attack on our integrity. Now, Eakins, who was elected back in 2013, is not seeking re-election, and it's often been a long dissenting vote on the board. In 2015, she voted against a $60 million contract to build a new Southeast high school, voicing frustration over unanswered questions and behind-the-scenes process she called very disconcerting. Last year, Eakins voted against the measure to trim 15 days from the school year and make the school day longer, arguing the district should instead outsource custodial services. Oh, wait a second. Outsourcing custodial. She's going against the union. She's one of those crazy fanatics that's actually going against the administration in order to outsource and be able to maintain, I don't know, a regular school year without having to shorten the school year and lengthen the day, making it more of a pain in the butt for teachers, but doing it for the teachers. You remember that one? The teachers union, we're either going to let go of a librarian or we're going to have to shorten the school year. It's your choice, because we're here for you as the teachers union, holding you up for the union, because that's what unions do, is taking care of you. So we had another option, which we didn't hear about. We had another option, which they didn't even look at, which was outsourcing custodial services. That way, that would take the money away from actually the budget from the school and allowing others to be able to do this at a cheaper rate. We had other options other than what the teachers union just said we had. Either you shorten the school year or we let go of a librarian. Those are the two choices they gave. Remember, and we talked about this then, that they give, here's crappy option A, crappy option B, instead of looking and discussing and dialoguing, what other options can we do here? What other choices can we actually make here? They didn't allow that discussion to happen. Just like at the state level, you're not going to talk about cutting spending. It's not going to happen. Don't even try and talk about it. We're not going to open it up to a discussion. Either you raise taxes or, well, that's the only option. We raise taxes and we raise spending. They don't give the options. And this individual, Eakins, had advocated for the removal of custodial services to outsource them in order to save money so that way we don't have to shorten the school year and lengthen the school day. There was another option that we didn't even hear about or discuss at that time. In her letter, Eakins said the board members believe, quote, that everybody should be on the same page and agree all the time, and that a vote of a 6-1 or 5-2 is harmful and even dangerous. I think this calls for a discussion of some of the candidates coming in, both incumbents and non-incumbents, see where their stance is on this. Dialogue and discussion is a good thing. A difference in vote is a good thing. Allowing the discussion to happen in front of the general public and allowing the public to make 80% of the decision for you, to me, is a very good thing. But that doesn't sound like the way that things are going right now. 721-825-5721 talk. If you are a teacher, if you've been involved with the school district, I want to hear from you. Is this what's really going on? Now, this is an accusation, and another school board member says, yeah, that's actually not the case. I've disagreed with many individuals. I voted against some in other places as well. There's a difference, though, between disagreeing behind the scenes and then coming on board with it at the last minute to not have a disagreeing vote, or to actually go out and fight for the idea that you have and then vote a different way than somebody else. Because if it is a quote-unquote dangerous thing, according to the school board, to vote differently, then we have a silencing of opinions. We have a silencing of a dialogue, and that's not something that I'm okay with. When we're discussing the best way to handle our children, having a discussion, having a dialogue, having a disagreement is a healthy thing. But what it sounds like, if this is true, the way that she's describing this, if this is the way things are going, it sounds like members of Antifa. That if you disagree with me, then you're the problem. We will bully you. We will blackmail you. We will pressure you, because we all need to be thinking the same way. We all need to be in unison here. We all need to be in harmony here, and we all need to do everything together. And if you don't agree with that, then we need to come down on you, and we need to figure out why you're not on board with us, because we know what's going on. I'm not saying that's what's happening, but by that description, it sounds like that could be a very real reality. 721-825-5721 talk. I want to hear from you. This is the Voice of Reason on KQAM. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, good morning to you. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, KQAM. This hour, the Voice of Reason brought to you by Network Consultants. Business owners, listen up. You need some help with your infrastructure, and this infrastructure company can actually do that. They can help out with your firewalls, sonic walls, database safety, and security, network communications, VPN, backup solutions, cloud setup if you need to back some things up. They work with small to medium businesses. They want to make sure that your computer and your networks are running smooth to allow everything you do to actually run smooth. You're a small business and you understand the need for things to be running efficiently. They can help you out with that. It's kind of the side of the business that a lot of people don't pay attention to, and sometimes it falls behind, and it actually costs more money to fix these issues than it does to actually maintain them. Give them a call. Tell them I sent you, and you get a free network analysis. They'll come and visit your business. They'll review your system. They'll help you any way you can, even set you up to manage your own network, unlike anybody else really actually does. They have month-by-month plans available if you'd like to do so. You don't have to do long-term agreements. All you got to do is give them a call, 316-201-4624, or visit them online at network-consultants.com. Again, network-consultants.com. Proud supporters here on The Voice of Reason. We appreciate that. Let's go to the phones here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Amy.
Amy, how are you?
Great. Thank you. I was just calling in reference to the school issue. It's confusing to me because we send our kids to Classical School of Wichita. We pay between $5,000 and $6,000 a year for tuition, which I believe is probably at least close to maybe a third of what our state dollars are paying for public school kids. And our kids, I believe they still have the highest ACT scores in the city. We have one gym that all the kids share. We don't have a big, elaborate building, but we provide a really good, solid education for our kids there. And I just don't understand why it needs to cost so much in the public sector.
Wait, and you pay $6,000 a year for that education?
Between 5 and 6. Yeah, the lower schools are closer to 5,000, and upper schools are closer to 6. And we have a maximum of 15 kids in each class.
Wow.
So in the lower schools, there are 2 kindergarten and 2 first-grade classes, and there are only 15 kids in each class. And we're able to provide a stellar education, and we kill the public school kids when it comes to the PSAT and the ACT scores.
I can only imagine. And I mean, the average, if you break down the money with how much is actually going per pupil, when you talk about administrative costs, when you talk about the bonds that they put in for all these brand new tennis complexes and Olympic-sized swimming pools and so on and so forth. I mean, we're talking just over $13,000 per student that we're paying for our tax money, and they still can't even get Kleenex boxes into the classroom. So a $5,000 to $6,000 a year education, and their scores are way higher. Yeah. I mean, you would think that would prove right there that just throwing money at the wall and seeing what sticks is not going to be the solution for our public education.
Absolutely. And our classrooms are so much smaller than theirs.
Which means you get more one-on-one with the student and the teacher.
Right. They do a lot of public speaking and a lot of writing, which the public school kids are lacking. You can provide a really good, solid education for a lot less. That's
fascinating. Now, what school is this, did you say?
Classical School of Wichita.
Classical School of Wichita. I hadn't even heard of that. So it's is it? I'm assuming it's a private school. There is it. I mean, where did this come from? Because they, I mean, we've talked about trying to expand charter schools, private schools in the area, and it's been very difficult to do so. And that's apparently not a very big school around here.
Well, it is growing. It's growing exponentially. So it started 11 years ago. The classical model is around the nation, but it just came to Kansas formally 11 years ago. There are 2 other classical schools as well, I believe, in Wichita besides ours. But the model, it goes back to Dorothy Sayers, and the kids, they don't read what did Plato and Aristotle say. They actually read Plato and Aristotle and many of the great thinkers of the past.
Wow.
And they learn how to articulate a response to that. They have to debate each other, and they learn civil discourse. So it's a stellar education. You just don't have to spend as much money as our public schools are spending.
Unbelievable. Well, thank you so much for that update there. And I'm sure you're right. I mean, actually reading what Aristotle and Plato said as opposed to saying, well, they were just part of the Western civilization and a bunch of white supremacists because, well, they lived in Eastern Europe. So there you go. A little bit difference there. $5,000 to $6,000 a year as opposed to the $13,000+ we're paying per student for our public education. Their scores are higher. Why aren't we using this as an example to say, hey, look at this. We have other options, and you throwing more money at the system does not all of a sudden make it constitutional.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier, your personal political therapist. Give him a call at 721-TALK.
Hey, welcome back into the Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker. Appreciate you hanging out with us today. It's a Monday morning. Let's kick it off the right way here, shall we? 721-8255-721-TALK. Your thoughts on the education spending and the shenanigans happening with the school board. If that's the case, again, if it is, if it's not, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on if you've heard other stories like this. But the school board, as we know, I mean, we've seen the evidence of it. We focus a lot on the administrative side. And the superintendent, how much influence they have over the school board as well, saying, yeah, we're just going to increase it. We're going to do the deputy superintendent. We're going to increase the administrative side. We're going to have the teachers' unions be involved. We're going to limit the options we actually have because we all need to get on board, right? We all need to do the same thing, and we all need to be in unison. And if you disagree, we probably need to silence you to a degree to where you don't vote against us. You probably can't start any kind of, shenanigans against our agenda here. Now, with the last caller, we appreciate that. With the private schools, I mean, that's what we've fought for, is school choice. With the addition of charter schools, with the increase in private schools, with the competition with the public schools, and with that competition, surprise, surprise, then you raise the quality up so that way people want to come to your education schools and to your classrooms and to the teachers, and they want to go to those areas because they know they're going to get a good education. It's not about just being stuck with whatever and, heck with this. It's about making sure that your children have the best education. And the way that you give your children the best education, it's not about, well, they deserve to go here. Oh, well, the teachers, they just whatever. Oh, well, the school system, yeah, whatever. And we're just going to go here. No, it's about, I'm going to educate my child and I'm going to give them the best opportunity that I can. Anybody. And what's really fascinating is the fact that that private school, the Classical School of Wichita, $5,000 to $6,000 a year. I mean, we talked about other private schools in the area that were close to $11,000 to $12,000, which was under still the average of what we spend per pupil in public school systems, but a lot. It was still up there, $11,000, but $13,000 for public education, and with that one, $5,000 to $6,000. That shows, ladies and gentlemen, that we can actually make a quality education without throwing more money at it. So this entire argument of saying that it's unconstitutional, that it's not suitable, that it's not equitable, that it's not whatever the terms that they like to use, whether it's in the Constitution or not. Suitable is really the only one that is. But any of those arguments saying that we need more money in order to make and provide a better education is complete malarkey. It's not true. Why? Because that just proves it, that we can have a less amount of money and we can have a way higher quality education. And maybe it's because there's more one-on-one with the students and the teacher, only being 15 students in a classroom. Maybe it's because that they actually have resources in the classroom that they can actually utilize. I don't know what the problem is there, but the public education system, I'm sure the bureaucrats in the administration side has something to do with that, with the bullying, intimidation, blackmailing, and only promoting one agenda at a time because they don't want to look like they're disagreeing. I'm sure that has something to do with it. Don't you agree? 721-8255-721-TALK. Let's go to the phones here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning, Andy. This is Carl.
Carl Peterjohn. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm fine, and as a parent of a student in 259, I mean, the practices that Board Member Akins, I think, is spot on. I think it's kind of interesting that Lynn Rogers took exception, and as a very liberal state senator who also is on the school board, and that's kind of interesting that we're apparently so short of people that we've got to have him holding two different positions at the same time in an elective office. We're in a situation where anyone who doesn't seem to be drinking the liberal Kool-Aid at the school board, the bullying at school board meetings, I think is really unfortunate. And if we're going to have a collective, the government school system structured in a way, it's too bad that everyone isn't able to participate, and some people get pushed down. And I hate to see Ms. Akins leave the board, because I think she's been an excellent voice for a lot of citizens out there who wouldn't be heard otherwise. And the fact that we've got there's a, if you don't drink the government school Kool-Aid, as promulgated by Mr. Rogers, and he's got, I think, 3 other votes that are pretty solid with him on the school board, and sometimes it's even, I think, even 5 or 6. We're in a situation where we should have a diverse group of opinions being expressed, and unfortunately, we're in a situation, Andy, where
we should always have diverse opinions, especially in a taxpayer-funded public school system, to where we have parents coming, where we discuss, what we talked about a week or two ago with the curriculum, with the certain books that are allowed in our public school libraries and being discussed in classrooms, with the discussions that we have with the teachers and the students in the classroom on how much influence the teachers, and we talked about the role models and the influence that teachers actually have on the students starting at a young age and going up through high school, and how much of a role model that those teachers are. That should be the discussion on what we're going to be teaching and educating our youth on. And the fact that we have to silence part of that they can have their internal bickering within the school board behind closed doors, but then when they come out in the public and they say, all right, this is the stance that we're taking as a school board in unison, we're not going to disagree on this, and this is the way we're going to go, that cuts off all of the parents and everybody else that wants to be involved in that process to make something better for their children, to where they don't get that chance because the school board's already made up their mind.
Well, I think the fact that they're able to, what I think they were referred to as three by three types of meetings going on. It's unfortunate that you've got to have board members pulling. Apparently, Ms. Akins was pulling a fair number of items off the consent agenda so that they could actually talk about them. And when you've got some significant expenditures, they had this kind of a special contract for computer security, and that's obviously very important in this day and age. One of the challenges for all levels of government, and including local government, is trying to keep information secure. And there's a lot of efforts to try and data mine and illegal hacking, but when this sort of these contracts, 6-figure contracts, are sent out and there isn't, it just slides through on the consent agenda. It's one of those things that's very disconcerting, and I'd like to see the line item for the millions of dollars that USD 259 taxpayers are having to spend for attorneys to sue taxpayers for more state spending.
Well, in the Wichita School District,
what was it?
It was $7 million total. I think $2.5 or $3 million. No, it was even more than that. It was close to $5 million. I think, because Wichita School District by far is number one. Close to $5 million of the school board's money. In the school district's money going towards the lawsuits against that. But as we talked to Dave Traubert with the Kansas Policy Institute, it's been over $7 million just the last 2 years on litigation against the state for more school funding because we can't utilize the funding that we currently have. What I find just completely off the wall here, though, and completely absurd, is that we fight for more money and more money and more money and more money, and we get more money, and then they turn around and after they get more funding, then they lay out a bond for the local community outside of what they're already receiving from the taxpayer money that the individual's already paying. Then they turn around and take out a bond specifically for them to be able to build new things, whether it's a new school, whether it's the complex for the tennis courts, whether it's the Olympic swimming pools, whether it's a new football field. We take out an individual bond on top of all the additional money that they're getting because they want to grow faster than what they need to be growing. And I find that very troubling. If they want to build a new school, if they want to build a new arena, if they want to build a new whatever, then why don't we do it within the taxpayer money they're already receiving, as opposed to putting another burden on top of the community when their mill levy rates, when their income tax rates, when their sales tax, when whatever that we're putting into the pot at the state level is already 60% of that going towards the state schools?
Well, Andy, 2 quick points. The enrollment's been basically flat around 50,000 students, whether you're talking full-time equivalent or head count.
Yes.
And there's actually 3 ways they measure it. The second thing, I'd appreciate it if you'd clarify, the data I'd heard was USD 259 had contributed over $2 million for the school finance lawsuit out of a total, all the school districts combined, about $7 million. If those figures have been updated or different, I'd sure like to know what they are.
It might be $2 million. I don't. You're right.
About this.
Yeah, you're right. It's around $7 million in total for the last couple of years. A breakdown of specifics, I don't have it in front of me here, but I know that Wichita was number one. Whether that was $2 million or $3 million, it was up there. And the Wichita School District definitely is the biggest contributor for something like that. While we, by the way, just increased to add a deputy superintendent, while we're talking about increasing the administrative side, and then while we complain that we don't have enough money for the classroom.
Well, in terms of adding more and bringing in the deputy superintendent, that position's been a troubled one for many, many years, even before you came here. And I really don't think that's when people are saying, hey, there's more money needed for schools. Parents are having to kick in more money if they want their kids to take the advanced placement tests, and so we've got money to hire a new deputy superintendent, but we don't. But the parents are going to have to kick in more money if they want their students evaluated for AP courses. I think we have our priorities off base, in my opinion. But having seen the bullying down at the school board, I'm sure if I expressed that opinion at a school board meeting, Mr. Rogers would tell me I've got my facts wrong.
Well,
I don't think I do, but that's the way things operate down there.
Well, Mr. Rogers, I don't know. I mean, won't you be my neighbor? Come on, won't you be a little friendly with you there? I appreciate the call there, Carl. I appreciate it. 721-825-5721 Talk. I mean, if we're going to spend this much money on a public education system, wouldn't we at least be able to see the great differences of ideas and perspectives in a public debate scene and a vote based on the differences that we believe in, as opposed to behind the scenes bickering and in the blackmailing, bullying, pushing? If that's the case. Now, Akins claims that that's what's going on here. I'm not there, obviously, so I can't judge and just lay down and say, yes, that's what's happening. But if that's what's happening behind closed doors and saying that we live in a world of bullying, intimidation, blackmailing behind the scenes, so that way the school board can look happy and in unison up front, then we have a serious issue we need to address. Because if we're going to pay that much money into a school system, I would want to see the debate and the dialogue and the discussion so I can look at every possibility of every situation and then make a judgment as a parent by myself and then be able to let the school board know the way I'm thinking there. But if they already have their decision going into a public debate to where they already know what they're going to do, that does me no good. That does you no good. That does any parent no good, because you don't have really a say in it. They make their decision. They lay down the law behind the scenes, and then they come to you and say, this is what we're going to do, like it or not. And I have a very big problem with that. When we start talking with some of the school board members and the candidates going into the special election in a couple of weeks, this will be an issue that we will address, and we'll ask and see what their take is on this, whether it's been happening, not happening, and how do we change it from here. How do we fix it moving forward? 721-825-5721 Talk. 12 minutes at the top of the hour. Let's go ahead and take a break here. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, good morning to you. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, KQAM. About 7 minutes to the top of the hour. It's great to have you along today on a Monday morning. We're just carpe diem all over this place. We got to get the mop and clean it up here because we're just spilling it everywhere. Yeah, 721-825-5721 Talk if you want to join into the program. This portion of the Voice of Reason brought to you by the AARP, whether it's the Fraud Watch Network, the Retirement Calculator, whether it's just getting involved in the community, it's the AARP. Check them out, aarp.org/KS. Marin Turner back on the phone with us here. Marin, how are you this morning?
Good morning and happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you. It is, I cannot believe it, it is fall time. It is cold weather time now. 44 degrees currently here in Wichita. It's a little bit chilly. I've been enjoying the 70-degree weather. It was perfect yesterday. It was a little chilly, but we went out and we carved our pumpkins. We got that all ready for Halloween in a week away. But the cold weather's coming. I cannot believe we're to this point already.
Oh, neither can I. You know, yesterday was beautiful, beautiful walking weather, biking weather, but it is getting cold. And sometimes older people who have low incomes have trouble paying their electric or their gas bills, water bills. And so we want to make sure that they know about the cold weather rule, which is effective November 1st through March 31st. And basically, it was established by the Kansas Corporation Commission to make sure that Kansans have residential electric, natural gas, and water services. It basically says that a utility cannot disconnect your service when the weather is forecasted to fall below 35 degrees or be in the mid to low 30s within the next 24 hours. But you have to call your utility company and make arrangements. And there are all kinds of things you need to know about what those arrangements are, but you need to call your utility company to make arrangements. Beyond that, ARP also has some tips on how you can keep warm this winter. You can find them on our general AARP.org website. But here are a couple of the suggestions that we have so that people can stay warm during the winter. Make sure you seal your air leaks. That is the major culprit behind high heating bills and heat loss in the winter. But make sure you seal your air leaks. Keep the blinds and the draperies open during the day so you can get more heat, and make sure you close them during the night so you can keep in more heat. And make sure that you turn your thermostat down to 68 degrees or during the day and 60 degrees at night, which will save you about 3% on your heating costs.
Wow. Well, I mean, that's some great tips. And luckily, we've been fortunate the last couple of winters. I mean, the 2 winters I've been here the last 2 years really haven't been that bad. We get 1 or 2 little icings and 1 or 2 little snows, and that's about it. But it does get very cold, especially at nighttime, as you mentioned, with the winds, especially that'll pick up. And I mean, yeah, trying to do those little tips to be able to keep heat in your home and maintain that heat in your home without it actually getting through, whether it's cracks through your windows or underneath your doors or whatever the case is. You need to be very, very cautious of those. But it is good to hear that, I mean, if it does get really cold, I mean, that heat utility bill is going to be jacking up. And sometimes if you cannot afford that, at least we know that they aren't able to just shut it off when we're going to see a negative 10-degree day kind of thing.
Yeah, that's really important. You know, older people pay a disproportionately higher amount of their income on the utility bills. And so it's really, really important that everyone knows about the cold weather rule. It is dangerous when you have to make a decision between paying your heating bill and buying food and buying medications. All kinds of bad things can happen. So if you want more information, you can contact the Corporation Commission at 1-800-662-0027, but I would also encourage you to call your utility company directly so that you can make the arrangements. Also, call AARP. We're more than happy to help you. Make calls or whatever you need to stay warm this winter. You can call us at 1-866-448-3619. We'd be happy to talk to you.
Very good, very good. And going into the cold weather season, which is going to be upon us before we would actually like it to be, is going to be here very quickly. So appreciate that information there. The cold weather rule is very important, especially here in this area. Marin, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. You guys have great time with the AARP, and we'll talk to you next week. Right before Halloween, we're going to have to wear the costumes or something on the radio.
Absolutely. Thanks, Andy.
Always a great time. That's Marin Turner with the AARP. Check them out, aarp.org/KS, and visit them with some of that information. Great tips there with the cold weather rule. Coming up, hour number 3, we got Gerard Lamiero, author of the book Great News for America. He's got his new book getting ready to come out as well, I believe, the beginning of the year, talking about the midterm elections, getting ready to advance conservatism in the Trump administration and the Trump agenda. We'll talk to him and more when we come back. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM. Stay here.
Speak. It's time for Reason.
And I think that we should take that same idea and apply it here in our local statewide elected seats. If you don't know how to lead and do it under a Republican agenda and push Republicans who may be green, who may be freshmen, who may be trying to learn the system, if you can't pressure them a little bit as the leader of one chamber or another in order to do something productive in a sense that actually abides by Republicanism, then you need to be out of leadership positions.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
good morning to you. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, hour number 3. The Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. It is the day we've been looking forward to. It's a Monday. Let's go ahead and start it off, shall we? We got to get pumped up, get set for the day, set the tone for the entire week. We're 1 week away from a holiday. I say we get as productive as we can because, well, we're conservative.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started.
There it is, 721-8255, 721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, shoot me a message on Facebook on the Voice of Reason page, on the KQAM page, and on the Twitter at Hoosier Reason. The Facebook live feed is up and rolling as well. We appreciate you checking that out. If you can like it, share it. We love you being able to do so. Let's spread the word. Advancing conservatism on a daily basis. We're so entertaining that you just can't turn away for 1 single second. Let's jump right into it. I'm really excited to get our next guest back on the phone. It's been a while since we've been able to chat with him. His website, greatnewsforamerica.com. His latest book, Great News for America, which I know he's working on another one for the midterm elections. We'll talk about that a little bit as well. But Dr. Gerard Lamiero is back on the line with us here. Gerard, how are you, my friend?
I am doing great. It's great to be back on your show.
Oh, we love having you here. There's so many great things happening. I mean, your book, Great News for America, we are, as Donald Trump says, we are winning. It is huge. It is big league. We're doing great, wonderful things. We're going to get tired of winning here pretty soon. The question I have for you, because we've been relating this to the local level here at the statewide level, but the attacks, the nonstop abuse Donald Trump gets on a daily basis from the media, from the left-wing progressives, the latest one about his phone call that he made to a Gold Star family, it never ends. It never ends. The question is, though, is it really working?
Not for the Democrats, not for the left. They might think it is, but you know what? The opposite effect is happening. During the Obama administration, the Democrats saw the loss of so many seats across the country in different offices that currently they now have the lowest number of democratically held offices throughout the country they've had since the 1920s. They are in a bad depression, if you will, political depression. But you know what? The news for them is even worse because we're now seeing something. You've heard about the movie The Matrix,
Yes.
1999 sci-fi. And that, well, in The Matrix, they talked about swallowing the red pill, which was the pill of truth. And that's how you got to see the truth. Otherwise, you were living in delusional world. Well, we are hearing Democrats, and I'm serious, now saying we are swallowing the red pill and going over to Trump's side. Surprisingly, this surprised me a little bit, some of the biggest big government supporters are now moving toward supporting Trump. Why? Because the left is so off the deep end, so negative, so against free speech, and on, all the other negatives, that a lot of Democrats who even like big government can't support that kind of agenda. They think it's totalitarian in nature, and they have a point.
Well, that's very true. And I mean, the way that they use their agenda to bully and blackmail individuals, which we're now seeing the rise of Antifa. We've seen the Black Lives Matter movement. We've seen a lot of abuse from that side. The media has actually been kind of the front and center of that for a long time. It's beginning to crumble. And they drag his name through the mud so bad that, I mean, even after we sit there and we defend it and we actually rebuke it, people just still have that bad taste in their mouth from what they say, at least, about Donald Trump. But as you mentioned, I mean, the special elections we're seeing across the country, Republicans are continuously winning. We saw the great primary down there in Alabama that went very well to the conservative, even with the individual that Donald Trump didn't necessarily endorse, but he's now endorsed, obviously, for the general election. We're seeing conservatives piggybacking on the populist movement that Donald Trump's created.
Absolutely. In Tennessee, Marsha Blackburn is going to become the next senator, replacing Bob Corker, who has been working against the Trump agenda. Remember, it's not just Trump. They want a tough president, the American people, but they want to get the Trump agenda passed. They want lower taxes. They want a strong military. They want to protect our borders. They don't want to have drug folks and people like that come across the border. They don't want terrorists to come across the border. They want to have a border. Mm-hmm. And the Trump agenda is what the American people basically want. and the Democrats are working hard to prevent it, plus their constant attacks that make no sense, delusional. That representative who attacked Trump for trying to console a widow was absolutely absurd. And even the complaint by the widow didn't make much sense. They're taking every word he says out of context and trying to put a negative spin on it. And you know what? The American people are smarter than that. They know that it's a lot of baloney, and they're treating it that way. And guess what? At the polls, the Democrats are suffering.
Oh, absolutely. It's not working for them in any way, shape, or form. They're trying, and I think all it does is widen the division between the progressives that fall into that trap and the conservatives and the Republicans that are supporting Donald Trump. Here's the next question for you, though, because Donald Trump is just one individual. He's head of the executive branch, but he's only one guy. And he really can't do a whole lot until Congress gets something on his desk, unless he can find a way to do an executive order like he did with the beginning of the repealing of Obamacare, written and organized by Rand Paul. But the Republicans themselves, I got to admit, I've been extremely frustrated with them for a while now because we can't get anything done. And it's a very frustrating moment. And then we blame Trump for not actually doing what he said he was going to do.
Well, you've anticipated my next book. The next book out, hopefully in January, is More Great News for America. And it talks about the 2018 election and also what's going to follow in 2019. And what I'm seeing happening is the Republicans have a smaller and smaller window of opportunity to pass the Trump agenda. If they don't, I predict the following, all right on your show. I predict the end of the Democratic Party completely. I think the Democratic Party is going by the wayside because they offer nothing to the American people that they want, except in the case of people who really want a lot of welfare. They're still picking up some of that vote. But the Republican Party, I think, is going to split. I think there's going to be a conservative wing that will come out with a new name like the Conservative Party, and then there'll be the establishment Republicans who are the old school rhinos, the ones who are against everything the conservatives are for. And not exactly, but you know what I mean. They're basically a liberal version of republicanism. I think those two will be the two parties of the future going forward. In every critical and historic election, if you go back 241 years, which I did, and looked at all the elections, you know, the Whig Party is no longer around. Mm-hmm. The Know-Nothing Party is no longer around. There are a whole bunch of parties that are no longer around. I think the Democratic Party is going off the deep end. I think the Republican, which holds the majority of support, is going to split into sort of a liberal version and a conservative version. The conservative version is going to be the one that triumphs. It's going to win most elections, and that's the price these people are going to pay if they don't get their act together soon. The party's going to split.
Do you think we have enough support to make that happen? Because I've been very hesitant of talking about a third party. I've always been a party.
No. Yeah, there's no such thing as a third party. I just said the Democrats are gone. The Republicans split into two parties. They are the majority parties. There's going to be sort of conservatives and liberal Republicans.
Well, and the
Democrats are like the deep end, delusional, totalitarian, Marxist socialists.
And they just fall off to the wayside there. I mean, and Bernie Sanders is going to lead that charge, by the way.
Well, and he'll lead it right down into Death Valley, so to speak.
Oh, absolutely. And you're right. And and that's exactly what we are seeing right now. We're seeing the division in the Republican Party. We see the Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, Mike Lee, Rob Johnson, these individuals that try to stay on some form of platform to some degree. Then you see the Mitch McConnell and you see the Paul Ryan to some degree. You see the John McCain that are coming out and saying, oh, Donald Trump's pushing us too hard. We can't really change things that quickly. We're not really going to go down this road. You see John McCain stopping the block for the vote for Obamacare. Right. You see John McCain potentially threatening the tax reform vote. I mean, you're seeing these establishment Republicans get exposed every day now.
That's right. And take a look at what's happening. Bob Corker didn't get Trump's endorsement, and he's not running, and he was against the Trump agenda. He's gone. That's what's going to happen. A lot of the Republicans who are in the rhino category are basically going to get primaried out of existence in the next election or two. And the Democrats, who are way off the deep end, they're going to be losing elections left and right. There are 24 Democrats and 2 independents who vote with the Democrats who are up for re-election in the Senate. Do you know what? They are going to lose big time. They're going to lose a lot of seats, and they're not going to just lose them to a Republican that's a rhino, they're going to lose him to Republicans that are conservatives. So the Senate is going to be way more conservative in 2019 after the 2018 election. That's why the next book I'm putting out is More Great News for America. It gets better.
It gets even better there. Here's the question. If the Democrats want to make their party healthy again, what do they have to do?
Well, they have to start doing what the American people want. They have to cut taxes. They have to add some morality back into the government. They've got to be responsive to the voters. And that is, Americans support the flag. Mm-hmm. Now you have I remember the Democrat in the House who took a knee in the House.
Yeah, Sheila Jackson, I believe. Yeah, from Texas, that was trying to support the NFL players there. You're right, kneeling on the chamber's floors. To me, that is the utmost disrespect from an elected official that swore under the Bible or whatever she swore on to defend the Constitution and the American flag, and her taking a knee like that on the chamber floor. I don't know how she's still in office.
Well, you see, they are getting on all the wrong sides of all the issues, and Trump is smart enough to stand for principles that the American people agree with him on. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's his natural stand. I don't think he's faking it. I think he believes in being patriotic.
Sure.
The American people love it. He's solidifying, consolidating his base. He's adding new people who are swallowing the red pill that we talked about earlier. And the Democrats they're doubling down on delusion, and it's not getting them anywhere.
Well, you're right. And I mean, I don't know if you saw the debate last week between Ted Cruz and Bernie Sanders, but it doesn't sound like they're going to change anytime soon, which to me is kind of comical, but it's going to harm them in the long run. We're running short on time here, but let me ask you this. Last week we talked with an organization called For Today, and they're trying to head up part of that movement to push Mitch McConnell out of leadership in the Senate. Do you think that kind of movement's going to be successful?
Oh, he doesn't have long. If he doesn't really get his act together quick, he is not going to be, and neither is Paul Ryan, going to be in those positions in January 2019 when we have a new Congress. They are history. And by the way, the debate, Bernie Sanders, Ted Cruz, let me point out to people who might have missed it. Ted Cruz said to Bernie, what's the difference between a Democrat and a socialist? He said, I don't know.
I don't know that one. You can't ask me that. I don't know. It was a phenomenal debate. I love watching those two. I wish that would have been the general presidential race debate last year between Cruz and Bernie Sanders, because every time they debate, which the first time they did on healthcare, this time on tax reform, it really shows how lacking of a substance that socialist mentality actually has. He changed it to, hey, what's your view on college kids actually being able to get a job after work? Well, I believe in the death tax. What? I mean, he doesn't know where to go with those things. He made himself look childish, in my opinion. I thought it was hysterical.
Ted Cruz is a great debater, too.
Absolutely.
When he was at Harvard, he was the best they had.
Absolutely. He's phenomenal with that. So I really enjoy that, and it shows, again, I think that more people need to pay attention to those because it really shows the difference in ideology and the substance behind those ideologies. Sanders got a little annoyed when Ted Cruz was showing all those nice little printouts of the graphs because, I mean, he had nothing else to report from those. Real quick here, we got just about a minute left, but talk to us about the new book. I know you teased it, but more great news for America.
Right.
The midterm elections are coming up. We're still winning, even though the media doesn't say we are.
Well, people liked my book, Great News for America, and I appreciate that because you put a lot of time into writing it. I did. And I decided what's next, what people want is more great news for America. They want to know what's happening in the 2018 elections. They want to know about the Trump agenda. They want to know what's going to happen with the political parties. And I've given you a hint as to one of the possibilities that's going to happen, and it depends on other factors, and that's discussed in the book. So this book is all about what's coming in 2018, 2019. I also throw in a few chapters to explain why the polls were so wrong and why my forecast was right for last year.
I love it. Well, you were dead on with this one. As you mentioned, the new rise of conservatism. We're seeing it happen right now. The last question before we let you go here, before the midterms, do you see a major tax reform actually happening without the blocking of establishment Republicans and Democrats? And do you see a furthering of a repealing of Obamacare before the midterms take place? Or are we going to have to go into the midterms to make that stuff happen?
I think they may put some window dressing on. I wrote an article last Monday about the Trump-McConnell friendship. The fact that McConnell's even talking to Trump right now is progress. I think they're going to try to do something because I think they see the handwriting on the wall. They're about to lose their jobs, Ryan and McConnell, and they're also going to lose a lot of people that are good friends of theirs that are in the Rhino establishment part of the wing of the Republican Party. I think they're going to try to put some window dressing on it. I don't know if it'll be good enough for the American people. We're going to have to see if they actually do something first and then decide how good it is as far as the American people are concerned.
He's Dr. Gerard Lamiero. GreatNewsForAmerica.com is the website. Great News for America is the book. More Great News for America is the new book coming out here. I'm sure we'll talk to you before the book comes out, before January. Obviously, we got a lot to cover, but really excited to be being able to see that one. And we'll talk to you again here real soon.
Yeah, I just saw the cover. It looks pretty nice.
I love it. I love it. It's getting all ready. We appreciate it, Gerard. We'll get you back on the show here again real soon.
All right, sounds great.
Always a pleasure. 23 minutes past the hour. We'll open up lines to you. Wrapping up the show today. It's a Monday. It's the Voice of Reason, and it's KQAM. Stay here.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker KQAM. Thanks again to Dr. Gerard Lamiero swinging by, chatting with us here in the 8 o'clock hour. We'll get him back on the show again real soon. Again, GreatNewsForAmerica.com is his website. More Great News for America is his new book coming out in January. We'll have some copies to give away on air. The last box that we got of his first book, everybody enjoyed thoroughly. I enjoyed it. It was a great read, and I highly recommend it. Great News for America is that one if you do want to check it out. When we come back, let's take a bottom of the hour break. When we come back, we'll open up lines to you, get your thoughts on the movements that you see. You and I on the down home on the frontal side here, we are the ones that see the trends, good, bad, and indifferent. What do you see going into the midterm elections next year? Do you see a rise of conservatism? Do you see people getting frustrated, angry with Republicans? Do you see the Democrats getting momentum, or do you see them still going to the wayside? Embracing Bernie Sanders is not going to be the way to win something, and that might be a reminder for some of the local Democrat candidates as well. Just a thought for you. This is the Voice of Reason on KQAM. Stay here.
Wichita's fastest growing radio show.
Something big is going on, and the American people need to know what.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Well, good morning to you. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, KQAM. It's great to have you along on a Monday morning. Advancing conservatism so entertainingly, you're not going to want to change the dial, get out of your car, actually go into work, or you're going to be checking out the Facebook Live feed so that way you can keep listening to it while you're actually working. We appreciate that. We love you and welcome into it here on a Monday morning.
Since this is a tax debate, what is the difference between a socialist and a Democrat on taxes?
Well, I don't know the answer to that.
That was the quote that Gerard Lamiero was talking about. That's really something. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. Why should you ask me that?
It is totally absurd.
That is totally absurd. Why would you do that? This portion of the Voice of Reason brought to you by Lewis Street Glass on South Market in Wichita. If it's anything glass, it's got to be Lewis Street Glass. Hello. Automotive, residential, and commercial. They'll fix anything for you from the windshield to your windows to maybe some pattern glass or fireplace glass. They can install it. They can repair it. Maybe the commercial front doors that you have or some commercial windows that's cracked. They do have after-hour emergencies that can take care of you when you need it. They are the oldest glass store in the state of Kansas, and they are that for a reason. Lewis Street Glass. Give them a call, 316-263-8259, or visit lewisstreetglass.com or at their location, 743 South Market, right here in Wichita, Lewis Street Glass. We appreciate them hanging out with us here on The Voice of Reason. 316-721-8255, 721-TALK if you want to join in here. I have a clip, and I want to see if I can try and find it here, talking about kind of the national level here. It's fun to listen to Republicans, and it always seems like that they're their best, these establishment Republicans, when they are among their own kind. And they can poke fun at themselves, they can poke fun at others. And over the weekend, what was it, Thursday night, Friday night, sometime on Saturday, I don't know, the Alfred E. Smith dinner that happens every year, and they usually have a great speech, and they usually have the nice little shots taken back and forth at one another. The candidates usually go during an election year, and they'll go and talk there. And as we talked with Gerard Lamiero about some of the establishment individuals being weaned out of office, which needs to be, by the way, they always feel like they can loosen up just a little bit. If you remember back in the day, John McCain in 2008 at the Alfred E. Smith dinner, finally started talking about some of the stuff that we needed him to talk about during the entire campaign that he didn't do until this dinner. And that's when he started talking about the fraudulent registrations, and he started talking about Mickey Mouse being registered as a Democrat, and you can't be a Democrat unless you're deceased or you're underage and you're finally registered. And I mean, he started taking some shots, and it was hysterical because it was so true. Paul Ryan spoke at the Alfred E. Smith dinner last week or this weekend, whenever it was, and started taking some shots at Donald Trump while making some fun at himself.
The press absolutely misunderstands and never records the big accomplishments of the White House. Look at all the new jobs that the president has created, just among the White House staff. And when you read the papers tomorrow, everyone's going to report this thing differently. Breitbart's going to lead with, Ryan slams the president amongst liberal elites. New York Times is going to report, Ryan defends the president in a state Hillary won. And the president will tweet, 300,000 at Al Smith dinner cheer mention of my name.
So that was Paul Ryan at the Alfred dinner there last week, and it's kind of funny. It's comical. Sure, they like to let loose at these sorts of things, which is fine, but why don't we have that type of energy in Congress? Now, Paul Ryan, as you know, has been one that I've been very, very critical of. He's way better than John Boehner, don't get me wrong, but we still have ways to go. And the fact that he feels like he's in over his head, he's tried to work with President Trump, he tries to be reasonable to some degree, but at the same time, he still cannot let go of some of that establishment-esque within him. Mitch McConnell's starting to come around too, which I don't know if that has to do with the fact that Donald Trump has been able to influence them. I don't know if that's the fact that they're starting to realize that the Trump agenda is beginning to win, or what the case is, but at least Paul Ryan was able to come out with a health care plan that passed the House and was actually a substantial bill, and I actually enjoyed it. What has Mitch McConnell done? Nothing. Now, we talked about removing him from office. Will it happen? I don't know. I'd like to see it. We got John Boehner out. Will we be able to get Mitch McConnell out? And if so, who are we going to be able to get to replace him? Conservatism needs to prevail here, and I think it is. And if you're not conservative, I'm not just talking about Republican, but actually conservative to some degree, under the Republican umbrella, then you're going to start going down to the wayside. And this is really going to happen at the statewide level as well. Let me ask you something. How far can we go as a state with state legislators saying that they're Republican, but they're really not, and voting for massive tax increases, voting for more spending for education, voting for more regulation, voting for a larger budget? How far can we go down that road and continuously do that and blame the administration and blame someone in the past and then blame, play the victim, say there's nothing else you can do, there's no other option, and then still call yourself a Republican? How far can you do that? You're not going to. It's not going to work. At some point, there will be a blockade. At some point, there will be a line that you will walk past, that you will cross, that will not be okay with the constituents. And Republican voters in the state of Kansas will wake up and realize that you're not promoting republicanism. You're not promoting it. I mean, we go into this year talking about expanding Medicaid, talking about raising taxes again, potentially, talking about raising funding for education, talking about raising funding for correctional facilities, talking about more and more. Those are really going to be the top ones on the top of the agenda for this session. Now, name how we're going to do that without raising taxes. And as a Republican, you're going to support potentially expanding Medicaid. I don't think it's going to go through. Some believe it will. They're going to talk about more money for education I think it's going to go through, and I don't want it to see it go through, but I think it will, because they're afraid of the Supreme Court. Just those alone are going to cost more money. We are already on track to be in the red in 2019 for our legislative session for our 2-year budget cycle. We're already looking at being negative again, close to $1 billion. How are we going to even spend more money this year on an off-budget season and then still not raise taxes? It's going to happen. So what line is going to be drawn in the sand by the Republican constituents in the state to say, if you vote for one more tax increase, if you vote for one more spending increase, if you vote for one more budget increase, you are gone. We're not dealing with this anymore. Where is that line going to be? Or are they going to continue to be able to fool us by saying, yeah, we had to do it. Yeah, it was Brownback's fault. Yeah, we got stuck in this situation. There's nothing else we could do about it. Yeah, we got to do it. Yeah, we got to do it. Yeah, we got to do it. And then still be able to get voted in for the next election. I don't see that happening. And as we're seeing conservatism rise at the federal level through Donald Trump, which I know Donald Trump's not a necessarily conservative, quote unquote, but he is a populist, and he has been able to shake up the establishment, and the conservatives have been able to rally and partner up with the populists in order to start promoting their agenda. We are talking about a massive tax reform that the establishment Republicans do not want, that conservatives are loving, and that the populists feel like they're being successful getting something done. It's a win-win for the populists and the conservatives, not a win-win for the establishment and the moderates. We are talking about major healthcare reform, which we started with the Donald Trump executive order that was signed by Rand Paul, or created by Rand Paul, that was created by him, signed by President Trump, that the establishment despises. They hate it. Bernie Sanders, by the way, did drop his number of how many people were going to die in the streets and on the curb and in the gutters because of this. When we were talking about the healthcare reform prior, he was talking about, what was it, 45 or 50 million individuals going to be dying in the streets because of this, because they're not going to be able to get coverage?
It is totally absurd.
Yeah, well, it's still going to happen according to you. Now with this one, with the executive order from President Trump, now he's talking about 15 to 22 million people. So I guess it's going down, so I guess we're on the right track, right? By creating more of an option, by creating the private sector to allow options to happen, we have actually been able to decrease the numbers from Bernie Sanders.
It is totally absurd.
Yeah, that's right. 721-825-5721 talk. But then on the other hand, then we talk about major spending increases. According to CNS News, the real federal spending in fiscal 2017, which ended September 30th, was higher than any other year in history in the United States other than fiscal year 2009, when Barack Obama did the $840 billion stimulus law. We spent more money last year under Republican control than any other year except for 2009. We have a Republican majority that allowed that to happen. We're not talking about budget decreases. We're not talking about spending decreases. The budget proposal that Donald Trump sent in, as we talked about last week, was minuscule with a 0.6% of the entire federal budget, but massive enough that people threw a fit about it, and they panicked. They couldn't believe he was talking about cuts. And because of that freaking out and that panic of the spending cuts, we have spent more money than ever before, except for in 2009 during the big stimulus porculus bill. Tell me how that's Republican. The conservatives are frustrated. I don't like to say we the people, the American people, but the Republican constituents, let's put it that way, the Republican constituents are frustrated because we want a healthcare repeal. We want a tax reform. We want lower taxes. We want less regulation. And the Republicans in general, under the establishment, is not allowing that to happen at all. So it's time to remove them. It's time to start advancing conservatism. We talk about the quality standards of the Republican Party and whether we should have some type of level of, well, you need to at least have some percentage of Freedom Index score or conservatism at the statewide level. If we don't, then this is how we do it. If we don't have that, which we don't, this is how we do it. We expose them. We allow the constituents to know exactly what their voting records look like. The fact that they've been blocking not just bills, but Republican bills under a Republican president and under a Republican majority in both chambers at the statewide level and at the federal level. Shocker, right? And these establishment ones do not want anything to change. They want the mundane, same old, and they're not willing to reform it, which means they're not the leaders that we elected them to be, which means they need to be removed. And that's really the simplest of it. Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, and we need to look at our leadership here in the state of Kansas. Are we going to promote republicanism? Are we going to get ourselves back on track and keep the money in the pockets of the citizens as opposed to the streamlined, nice little pipeline of revenue going into the state or going into the federal government and allowing them to continue to spend the way they want to while pretending that they've done something productive? We're not going to allow it anymore. That's what we're going to stop in this next election. 48 minutes past the hour, 721-8255, 721 Talk. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, wrapping up the show today. It's a Monday. We appreciate you hanging out with us. Good Monday morning to you. Trying to set the tone for you, getting you excited for the day and for the entire week. Halloween next week. I want to see, here's what we got to do, by the way, for Halloween is I want everybody to post pictures on the Facebook Live thread, the conversation down there on what Halloween costumes that you're wearing for the day. Yes, you can be an adult and still wear a costume and go to work that way. That's just the way the world is. You can do it. I promise you can do it. I'm going to be wearing my superhero outfit again for my Halloween day. Because, I mean, we all need to be a superhero and be the hippie stopper. So looking forward to that. 721-8255-721-TALK. Talk radio, by the way, has gone through a lot of different evolutions. And as you know, Rush Limbaugh kind of started it back in the late 80s and kind of brought it back again, let's say. And it's been growing since then. And since then, it's been very critical of just about every administration. It was very critical of, at least Rush was, of George H.W. Bush. It called Reagan policies like voodoo economics and tried to go a different direction. Then we had Bill Clinton and we tried to stop that agenda. Then we had George W. Bush, which it was kind of an iffy time to where like, yeah, he's a Republican, but you know, he made some very establishment-esque types of movements. And you saw the rise of the Tea Party around that time as well, saying Republicans just aren't doing it for us. Then we saw Barack Obama. Then we saw Barack Obama again. Now we're seeing, and we're gone through this weird progression. Now, they said that talk radio was going to be dead once Donald Trump got in because there's nothing to talk about, that there's nothing for us to attack and go after, when now what we need to do is bring it back to the local front here. We have such major elections next year with the midterms that it's going to be so important for us to be able to expose what the media is doing. I don't think in Kansas that there's been an outlet for us to expose what the media has done to the Republican and conservative movements here like this before. I mean, it's been around, but we're growing, expanding. More so, I mean, looking at the way the ratings are, looking at the way things we're doing here, we're growing faster than we've ever grown before as a station and as a show, and we love that, and we appreciate that, and thank you for it. Now it's our time to be aware of the lies and manipulation that the left-wing progressives and the media is putting out to the Kansas people, and that the false reality, the blue pill that they've been taking between the red and the blue pill, the people have been taking for such a long time because they just didn't know. It hasn't been information that's really been open to the public unless you actually do your research. And how many of you, show of hands, out there going to work today, working all day, coming home tired, putting food on the table for your family, how many of you have actually been able to go out and do your research on every issue, do your research on the voting records of individuals, do your research on the campaigns, do your research on the comments of everybody, do your research on all of it? You don't get to. That's my job. My job is to try to inform you and then try to relay on the resources and the tools for you to be able to do additional stuff yourself if you want to, because you don't have to just trust me. I wouldn't want you to. I would want you to verify what I talk about. We have opportunities to do so here, and now more than ever, we can stop the lies. The schools are shutting down because they don't have financing. Really? Really? Oh, yeah, the children don't have money in the classroom, so we need more money. Really? Okay. Try and explain that one to me. Oh, the people are dying in the streets because we didn't have Medicaid, but the Medicaid program's really bad because it's privatized, so we need to not support the Medicaid program. How does that even make sense? Oh, there's shootouts in the middle of the campuses for kids with guns. Oh, tell me when the last one you saw. Oh, yeah, they left one in the bathroom that actually wasn't a student that left one, but one at Wichita State University from a staff member of the university. And the other one, wherever it was, I forget what other university it was, KU, I believe, that it was a gun that was stolen. Nobody knows how it was stolen. It was stolen from a house in a residential area a ways away from the university. Tell me how those are students that are just being neglectful and being irresponsible with their firearms. And yet, oh, by the way, we haven't seen a single shooting yet. I remember. Do you remember about this time last year, as we were going into the legislative session, and it was about a month or two out, October, November, and there was the story about how there was a misfire, an accidental shooting at K-State with a gun, and they tried to bring that up going into the session to try and scare people about the whole issue of kids carrying guns. Yeah, you remember that? I don't remember seeing any shootings happening since July of this year when it was actually legal for you to constitutionally carry and carry on campus, even though you really could before that too. The lies, the manipulations, they're happening all over the place, and no one's rebutting it, except for right here and some other sources and Newswise, but we're going to hold them accountable and call out who needs to be called out. Why? Because we have fun doing it. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. This is the Voice of Reason on KQAM. Have a great day, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow on a Tuesday. Have a great day.